who do you keep, who do you trade, and what can you trade? And I guess I had a conversation with Brad Stevens actually about this last week, where we talked about just how the up and down nature of this team. It adds a different wrinkle to those conversations that you have with other teams, because you know when the trade deadline comes up, teams that typically are the kind of easy ones to pick off as far as what they're going to do are the teams that are near the top of the standings, because all they're looking to do is maybe tweak something a little bit, nothing significant, just maybe get a little bit more depth to the mix. And teams at the back end of the pack who are just like, come one, come all. Everything you see, tell me what you want. Let's make a deal. Though, and then you got teams like the Celtics who have shown flashes of being a really good team, and then you lose to the Clippers twice, and you get your ass whipped by teams that you got no business losing to. New Orleans, with like basically one or two rotation guys already on a bad team, they got you down 18 at the crib before you have to rally and come back. So I guess my question to you guys is, looking at the way this roster is constructed, look at the up and down nature of it, and then a new factor in all of this, they've won 5 of their last 6 games. How do you think the wins, the trade wins, are going to be blowing between now and February 10th? I mean, are the Celtics going to be more active than we've seen in past years and look to get some things done, or are they going to be kind of what we've seen the last few years and just kind of maybe do one or two minor deals, but nothing that is like roster slash league altering?
I can't speak to what Brad Stevens will do, but if he actually wants to shake up this roster, everyone has to be on the table except for maybe Jalen and Jason. But he has to be willing to, I think, give up a significant amount. But to Gary's point, that would have to be for a playmaker, a consistent playmaker, because when we talk about everyone else on the roster that hasn't been making those shots, it also comes down to it seems as though the confidence isn't there either. So you need someone that can confidently go into the game at any point and just make a play or help the team make a play in some kind of way of fashion. And right now they don't have anyone that can do that. And if Brad can get a team to be willing to give somebody up that could bring that kind of influence to the roster, I think that could hopefully change the outcome of the rest of the season. But I don't know who would be willing to make that kind of deal with Boston.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll make some minor moves. I think that it's discouraging because let's face it, like they're 5.5 games out of the top spot in the East. As bad as they've been at times, as up and down as the losses have mounted and the tough losses have mounted, and people think this is a cursed season, they're 5.5 games from Chicago and Brooklyn in the East. So if you used to turn into sellers, I think it'd be really discouraging for your fan base. I think they can turn into buyers, but they're probably going to have to part with Romeo or Aaron, maybe even Peyton. I probably would trade Peyton last. I think he's got the guts, the fearlessness in the game to stick around. But I think they're probably going to have to part with one of those guys. And the question is, how attached is Brad Stevens to some of his youngsters? Is he as attached as Danny was?
Right.
Because as we
That's
learned, the attachment to the young guys burned Danny a lot. Like it just burned him. The attachment to Carson Edwards, the attachment, just some of these attachments that he had that he was
James
crossing.
Young.
Yeah, that he was crossing his fingers that it was going to work out, and it didn't. And you're going to have to part with something. Teams are going to want. Okay, Brad already gave up a first round pick in the Kimba deal. So is he going to give up another one? Or is he going to which I think he would have to be 23. I don't think you can give up consecutive first round picks.
No, can't.
So what's going to happen there? What does Brad have to offer? And is he going to dangle Aaron? And I'm not saying teams are going to really need Aaron, but he's a prospect. You can throw him into a deal. A team can take another look at him. So what's Brad going to sacrifice to get this done? Because teams are going to understand, and teams are going to charge high prices. They're going to go high until they maybe get desperate. But the fact is, I mean, Danny gave away Javonte Green last year. Javonte starting for the Bulls. Like some of these deals were just really like head scratching. Like You wanted to give Tice away, which hurts your defense in the second half after the All-Star break, and you threw in Javonte Green, and you threw in an NBA starter. Like, no, no.
On a
To
team
get
with like the best record in the East.
to get 16 games of Evan Fournier,
Oh gosh, yeah.
yeah.
Oof.
So for me, Brad's got to be smart, and I think he's extremely smart. He's got to make the right move, and he's got to be fearless and be like, listen, like, to whoever prospect, it just hasn't worked. Maybe you'll resurrect yourself or grow or flourish in another spot. But it's not an easy decision, because that Neesmith could become a good shooter somewhere, or Romeo. You would tend not to want to move those types of guys, but you can't have those. You can't have your team filled with prospects who ain't done it yet either. You can't. That's what happened the last. You had 5 or 6 guys in the roster holding spots that shouldn't have been on the team.
But you bring up a good point. You mentioned Fournier, you mentioned Javonte Green, and the way that they've had breakout seasons, so to speak. That's a little dramatic, I think, but they've had better seasons than they did in Boston. Do you think part of it is them just not being utilized in the right way when they were here?
Well, I don't think Fournier's had a good
At least
season. I think
Fournier
he's had a good season against Celtics.
had good
Yeah.
games. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. I think if Fournier played Celtics, he'd be Supermax. He'd be all time great. He'd be on the top 75. He played the Celtics every game.
He'd be the new logo.
Right.
Exactly. So let's be honest. He had 35 against the Celtics and like 11 against the rest of the league.
Yeah.
My goodness. So I think that sometimes some of these players aren't being utilized as much. Javonte was a growing player. He's an athlete more than he was a basketball player, but the Bulls have turned him into a defender, slasher, and that's what the Celtics are trying to do last year. And I think also he was close to Jason Tate. That was his best friend on a team, and to just kind of give him away like that, and just here, Chicago, like, we want to get under the luxury tax, and that was I think that if Brad could do that over again, I'm sure he would probably bring Javonte back, because he's kind of the guy they need, a guy who could just hit that corner three, freakish athlete, defend, give you energy. He doesn't ask for the ball, doesn't want to score. But I think
and he's the best friend of your best player.
Right. Why not?
Gary, and to your point, Gary, you ain't got to pay a lot of money for him.
No, he comes cheap.
You don't have to pay him like DeAndre Jordan money.
No,
well, now you would have to pay a little more though, because you let him
he's
go.
coming. He came a little cheap, but I mean, I think that the Celtics have to consider all their options, but I also think that players, do. I think they might flourish other places, but would you have paid $78 million for Evan? Yeah,
no,
that's a lot of money.
No.
Evan, like, the Knicks forked up $78 million for that dude.
Yeah,
like, just imagine him averaging 11 and 3 or 4, what he's averaging in New York, and having that here on a $78 million contract. Like,
the fans would riot. They would burn down the TD Garden.
So that's the thing, is that the Knicks overpaid for him because they were trying to take him away from the Celtics, and the Celtics were like, "We got it, okay, bro, you got him." And
but y'all want a backup from last year? Okay, y'all got it.
it'll end up being a smart move. You got the trade exception that you can use all up into the summer for in that Evan deal. But to me, I don't know if it's guys flourishing. People ask, well, are guys trying to get to, Horford got out of Boston, Hayward, Irving. I think they're all different circumstances. Is there a stain on this organization after the Isaiah thing? I don't know, but what you would like if you're a Celtic fan is for the team to maximize its assets as much better than they have, and they haven't. You look at other teams, like Memphis has Bane. Let's not talk about him. Okay, we talk enough about Desmond Bane, but they also have Konchak, some dude, number 46. They also have DeAnthony Milton. Like, they have guys who they picked up off the scrap heap. Or we were looking. I was looking with Jakey from the Athletic, Herb Jones for the Pelicans, second round pick. He's starting for the Pelicans. And I'm like, hey, he's a rookie. Did you see his athleticism? Did you see his potential? Like, that's he's going to be a player. Like,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of guys the Celtics got to land on. You can't keep
Yeah.
failing with your second round picks or giving them away, or like you got to score with some of these guys. And that's the thing. That's what hasn't happened. Because last year I was like, I was like, Herb Jones. I know he played at Alabama, and I looked at his like 35th overall pick. Like,
Mhm.
you know, uh, that's the thing. It's like you got to score on those guys every now more often than they have.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And the one thing, as we kind of look at the Celtics team and look at their roster and look at their players, there's really no clear path that they need to take that you can look at and say, this is going to make this team better. They can go and look for a knockdown shooter like a Buddy Hill. They can go try to add someone who might be a long term pickup right now. A guy like Jalen Smith in Phoenix, where he's probably not going to re-sign with the Suns, but he's played really well. I could see them making a run at him. They could look for a guy that's maybe not even playing now, who they can maybe get on the really cheap and hope that he can give them some juice down the road. Guy like TJ Warren, who has always been about getting buckets. And so obviously there's a lot of direction that the Celtics can go.